So, hi everyone, I am Chris Lois Ampil and I am your tourist guide today. Today, we'll able to tackle the beauty of the history of tourism. But wait, did you know that the word tourism is derived from the Hebrew word Torah, which means studying, learning, and searching. So, today, we'll able to study and learn and to have a knowledge about the history of tourism. So, if you're interested to learn, just sit, relax, and enjoy. Did you know that travel and exploration are the basic to human nature? Man has traveled since the earliest time, although the term tourism was used only in the 19th century. Tourism can trace its ancestry in the Old Testament. Noah, with his ark, must have been the first largest-scale operator, even though his passengers are most animals. There are numerous references to caravans and trades in the Old Testament. Chapter 26 and 27 of the book of Ezekiel describes trades and commerce in ancestry type of recount the travels abroad made by merchants. And now, let's talk about the early tourism. Did you know that early tourism has two forms? These are the travel for business and the travel for religious reasons. I'll explain the first one, the travel for business. Here, in travel for business, throughout the history, merchants have traveled extensively in order to trade with the other nation or tribes. In the Philippines, we call it barter. Early Phoenicians toured the Mediterranean as traders. The Greeks and the Romans were well-known traders, and as their respective empires increased, travel became necessary, but the Roman travelers was largely added by improvement in communications, first-class roads and inns. So let's proceed to the second one, the travel for religious reasons. Did you know that the travel for religious reasons took the form of pilgrimage to place of worship? Pilgrimages were made to fulfill a vow as in case of illness or great danger or as penance of sins. Besides, Rome and Jerusalem and St. James of Galicia was the formed destination of English pilgrims in the 14th century. Beginning in 1388, English pilgrims were required to obtain and carry permits, the forerunner of the modern passport. So let's talk about the tourism in the medieval period. During the medieval period, travel was declined. Travel, derived from the word travail, became burdensome, dangerous, and demanding during this time. After the decline of the Roman empires in the 5th century, roads were not maintained and they became unsafe. Thieves inflicted harm on those who dared to travel. No one during this time traveled for pleasure. Crusaders and pilgrims were the only one who traveled. And that's it. And now let's proceed to the tourism during the Renaissance and Elizabethan eras. During the Renaissance period, a few renowned universities developed so that travel for education was introduced largely by the British. The travel for education became popular in the 16th century. Under Elizabeth I, young men seeking position in court were encouraged to travel to the continent to widen their education. This practice was gradually adopted by others in the lower social scale. In time, it became recognized that the education of a gentleman should be completed by a grand tour of the cultural center of the continent, which lasted for 3 years. The term was used as early as 1670. While apparently educational, the appeal became social. Pleasure-seeking young men of leisure traveled predominantly throughout France and Italy to enjoy the cultures and the social life of Europe, with Venice, Florence, and Paris as the key attraction. By the end of the 18th century, the practices became institutionalized for the upper class of society. As young men sought intellectual improvement in the continent, the sick sought a remedy for their illness in spas or medical baths. The term spa is derived from the woolen word spa, means fountain. Travelers immerse themselves in the healing water. Soon, entertainment has added, and a dozen of watering places has become resorts, hotels. And That's for Renaissance and Elizabethan eras, and now let's proceed to tourism during Industrial Revolution as we proceed in the 19th century. The Industrial Revolution brought about major changes in the scale and type of tourism development. It brought about not only technological changes but also essential social changes that made travels desirable as a recreational activity. The increase in productivity, regular employment, and growing urbanization gave more people the motivation and opportunity to go on holiday. The emerging middle class combined higher incomes and growing education into an annual holiday. To escape from their responsibilities, the crowded city environment, they traveled to the countryside or seashore for their holidays. This led to the creation of working-class resorts near major industrial centers. And now, let's talk about the 19th century. There are two technological developments in the early part of the 19th century. These are the introduction of the railways and the development of steam power. The railroads created not only more business by providing a reliable and cheap transportation but also more competition as various private companies invested heavily in hotels, resorts, and entertainment facilities. This tourism was transformed from a small business, catering to elite into a start of a mass market that is traveled by a large number of individuals. The use of steam power provided increased mobility needed by the tourism businesses. A steamer on the major river provided reliable and inexpensive transportation that led to the popular day trip cruises and growth of the coastal resorts near large industrial towns. As tourism became organized in the late years of the 19th century, the organization of travel became an established institution. Travel organizers emerged. The first and most famous of these was Thomas Cook. His first excursion trade ship was between Leicester and Loughborough in 1841, with 50 passengers and a round-trip fare of 1 shilling. The success of this venture encourages him to arrange similar excursion using characterized trains in 1866. He organized his first American tour in 1874. He introduced circular notes which were accepted by banks, hotels, shops, and restaurants. In effect, the first traveler's checks. Other tour companies which appears in Britain at this time were Dean and Dawson's in 1871, the Polytechnic Touring Association in 1872, and Frame in 1881 in the United States of Americans. Expresses was found by Henry and William Spango. As the 19th century, due to laws, photography and guidebooks became popular. A huge varieties of guidebooks which deal with both locals and overseas travels were sold to tourists. The most popular of these was Baedeker, first published in 1839, which became the leading guide for European countries at the end of the century. So this is tourism during the 19th century. And finally, we are now in tourism in 20th century. At the beginning of 20th century, leisure travel continued to expand, encouraging by the increasing wealth, curiosity, and outgoing attitude of people, as well as the increasing ease of such moment. World War I brought about many changes which influenced the volume of tourism. Early post-war prosperity, coupled with large-scale migration, boosted the demand for international travel. Interest in foreign travel was further enhanced by the first-hand experience for the foreign countries. New form of mass communicators stimulated curiosity about other countries. In addition to the influence of the poster and the press, the cinema, radio, television widened the knowledge and interest in travel. After World War, form and travel began to change radically. The railways as means of the travels declined with the introduction of the motor car. Motorized public roads transports improved road conditions led to the popularity of seaside tour. World War II also led to the increased interest in travel. The war has introduced combatant not only the new countries but the new continents, generating the new friendships and an interest in different cultures. Another outcome of the war was the progress in aircraft technology. Air travel has become comfortable, safer, faster, and cheaper in comparing with other forms of transport. With the introduction of the Boeing 707 in 1958, the age of air travel for the masses arrived, hastening and declining of the sea travel. After the post-war recovery years, there was an increasing private car ownership. travelers switched to the use of private cars, and this change affected both coach and rail services. The car provides flexible transportation which fit people from the schedule and fixed routes of public transport. It encouraged the growth of excursion and short stay holidays. Resorts near major centers of population benefited considerably. Roads improvements brought more distance resorts closer to the major cities. Government have created more vacation time by incorporating isolation public holidays into the familiar long weekend throughout the year. The 1970s has also emerged the new pattern of tourism. As economic power has shifted between countries, new tourism generating countries across notably the oil-rich Arab countries and Japan. The Philippines, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia have strengthened their tourist attraction to appeal to new markets. Beyond its economic significance, there is a growing realization of the role of international travel in promoting the world peace and prosperity. And that's it. We encountered the history of tourism. Once again, I'm Chris Lois Ampil, your tourist guide, is now signing off. Thank you and see you again. Mabuhay!